I pledge allegiance
Yes, to the
to
flag
the flag
of the United States of
of the
America,
United States of America
to the republic for which
and
it
to the
stands,
republic for which it stands, one
one
nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you very much, everybody. I did not receive any public comments, written public comments at this time, so we will move on. Approval of the regular meeting of July 15th, 2020. It's the board's pleasure.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes?
Second.
Motion by John, second by Kyle. Discussion? All in favor, just raise your hand so we know. Okay, thank you. 5-0. Any okay. Okay, next management report. Chief, you want to give us your management report, please?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Chief Satkowski. I'll start off with the budget. It's fairly new, so there's no problems at this point. There's still a budget freeze in effect, so we're basically just paying the invoices and bills as they come in. The finance department implemented some new finance software that we're getting acclimated to. Kind of changes the way how we take out invoices and then pay those invoices. I mean, take out purchase orders and then pay those invoices. So myself and my administrative assistant, we've been getting used to that system, and that's a work in progress. It's a little cumbersome at times, but we hope to get better with it as time goes on. Our new CAD RMS system for the department is moving along. Officers, several officers have been trained in that usage, and then those officers are training the other officers in the department how to use that new system. The target date for that is the end of August, first week of September, to get that online and start using that new system. The grant has been approved for the e-citation for the vehicles. That'll allow us to purchase that hardware and software, so tickets could be printed in the car, and basically infraction books will be going to the wayside. That's where the state's moving everybody. So I think the grant was about $49,000. Originally it was 42 and some change, but the grant is for 49. The state basically upped it a little bit because of the crisis and the COVID, and prices might fluctuate, so they took that in consideration. And I just received notification on that today. A lot of the equipment and stuff that we have been ordering has been trickling in, and we've been dispersing that and getting into use. South Central Criminal Justice, they'll be running a test, so we'll get into that process just so we have a list for the future. We did switch vendors for the vehicle repair work that we talked about and was approved last month. Since the last meeting, we had several major events here in town. 2 commercial burglaries. We had a serious domestic situation, which serious physical injury occurred up on Brookfield Road. We had the incident on Lake Housatonic in which a vehicle went into the water and 2 individuals passed away from drowning. That same night, we had a fatal motor vehicle accident on Clinton Road. That remains under investigation, as well as the Lake Housatonic one. We're trying to finalize the contract with the union. We've been working on that the past week with HR and Town Hall. We had the preparation for tropical storm, the tropical storm that hit our area. That was an event that lasted throughout the day. A large amount of trees and wires came down. Obviously, that caused power to be people without power for a period of time, 4 to 5, even longer. So we dealt with that situation. And then the biggest thing that happened it was the Police Accountability Act that was passed by the state legislatures. House Bill 6004. I believe I made copies, and I think that was in your packets. It's quite lengthy. It's a lot to review. That's what we have been doing. We've been reviewing it. That remains a work in progress and will be for quite some time. The costs to the cities and towns are going to be astronomical. I don't believe the legislatures that passed that bill took that into consideration, but there is going to be a substantial cost to cities and towns. And we'll have to start working on some of those costs. And there's a lot of unanticipated costs with that. Training costs, policy costs, potential litigation costs. But those are some of the things that we're reviewing and will be for quite some time to come. Hopefully, if the legislatures go back into session, some of this will be revised or repealed, and maybe some new things will come out of that. But right now, that's what we have to work with, and that's what we're doing. And it's going to be a work in progress. We still have one officer out on long-term injury, and we still have one officer out on workman's comp. I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Do any of the board members have any questions of the chief?
Yeah.
Yes, Kyle.
I have a couple things that are comments, but I have a question as far as the crash on the river a few weeks back. Is there any particular reason that the officers that were there were not afforded the opportunity to attend the briefing that we put on as the several departments that were there, EMS, fire, the other fire and EMS departments that responded? I know I had sent an email. One officer, I believe, did show up after the briefing was over, but is there any reason that the officers weren't afforded the opportunity to attend that?
Commissioner Kelly, Deputy Chief Rinaldi, they were offered the opportunity. They were notified prior to that too, prior to the day of the briefing. So they were all aware of it.
Were they, I guess my question is, were they able to do that on or off shift, or were they given the option to be able to do it and not have to take calls or take?
No, they were told to go on shift if they were working to go on shift.
Okay. Because
they could come in.
I wonder about it because I know it was a fairly busy night. So I guess the question is, how come they weren't maybe covered for a few hours by overtime or whatever it may have you, so that they were able to attend it uninterrupted?
I'll have to look and see how many were on that night. I mean, if they came to the training, they should have been afforded the opportunity, and other officers could have handled their calls. So I'll have to look at who was in charge that evening and why wasn't it done.
Okay, I would appreciate that, because that's something
I was working, and I believe I was off that day, but I know I did afford everyone an opportunity to go. Again, I can't answer why right now due to the fact that I'd have to look at the schedule, who was in charge and why not.
Okay, I would like to know that, and we can talk further. It's just something that kind of struck me as important. Not struck me as important. It is important, So maybe, further on, if we ever do have something like that, and we offer some type of debriefing after the fact, that it's it's understood that anybody that is going to attend can do so without the worry of having to get pulled away.
Okay, and I agree with you. It is very important, and that I'll address it. That's all I'll say.
Yes, Dave. John?
Yeah, thank you. Piggyback on what Kyle was saying, but and I didn't know that Kyle had reached out to anybody, but Chief, is there any reason that any kind of critical incident stress debriefing wasn't offered by the department for the guys who were at either one of those calls that day? Because I mean, this is very important, and PTSD is a big issue that's been identified with our frontline workers, and this day and age, I don't know why we wouldn't immediately have a critical incident stress debriefing after an incident of this magnitude, or why we would wait for another agency to reach out to us.
So that Chief Psychowski speaking. So that evening there was talk. We did talk to the officers. We explained different things about EAP to them. We offered it to them. We told them to let us know if they had concerns. So I believe all that was done, and Deputy Chief Rinaldi oversees all that, and we had those discussions with the officers. And secondly, it was optional for them to go, I think, to that debriefing. We did not make it mandatory. We kind of left it up to the officers, and if they felt it was necessary, then they were able to attend. That's how I was, as I took it, and again, Deputy Chief Rinaldi arranged that, and so I thought all of that was covered. So again, it wasn't mandatory that they went, but it was optional, and we had talk with them at different times.
Deputy Chief Rinaldi here, like I said, I'll reiterate again, they were given the opportunity to go. I did send them emails and texts. And I believe Commissioner Kelly was what, 6:30, if my memory serves me right. So they were all given the opportunity. A few did ask me, and I told them they could attend. Again, I'll have to look into why supervisor who was in charge, or whoever was in charge, didn't give them that opportunity.
Yeah, listen, I'm not disputing the fact that, maybe they were told about it, but what I have a little bit of a problem with is they should have been told when they were notified of it. And I think I sent an email to you guys maybe Saturday or Sunday, but in the future, I think it should be told that if they want to attend, they can attend, and they can do that, by being taken off the road, right? So it was a busy night from what I understand. That's why one of the officers couldn't get there until afterwards. Obviously, he got there afterwards, which means he wanted to attend it. So I think if they're told that they have the option to go and that they will be covered on their shift, however that has to happen, I think that should be a little bit clarify a little bit better next time. That's all I have about that. I have some other stuff under comments and questions about some other stuff, but that's all I have about that.
Thank you, Kyle. Any board members have any other questions of the chief? The only comment I would like to make on that, Chief, is possibly instead of make it voluntary, make it mandatory. This is a very serious issue, and everybody deals with it differently. And I think this is something that every officer that's involved in a situation like this should be at least, not saying that it's offered to them, but make them go, because it might help them out in the future. That's just my suggestion. Any board members have any other questions or concerns on that issue or any other issues? Okay. Commissioners' comments. John Duke, do you have any comments?
I just want to commend everybody that was involved in both of those incidents and the incident on Brookfield Road for handling everything so professionally and doing such a good job, given the nature of the call. I know it's not something we see or get every day in this town or this area, and I think they all did remarkably well with it. I'll save the rest of everything I have for old business and new business. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bennett?
I'd just like to say that going through the monthly reports here, that there was a lot of outstanding police work done, and looks like it was a very busy time for everybody in town and law enforcement. And phenomenal job done by everybody, especially with two major incidents happening, actually 3 in town. So it's it. And the only other thing I'd like to talk about or later on is I know the 2 new vehicles were purchased, and maybe at some point we can revisit the Canine vehicle issue, considering the fact we're going to have 2 other vehicles now. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bitso. You're on. You have any comments, Commissioner Bitso? Okay. You're on mute. Now you're off mute, but we still can't hear you. Commissioner Kelly,
Just to
any
piggyback.
comments?
Yep, just to piggyback specifically to the incident down the river. You know, all the officers that were there did a tremendous job. And we even had Officer Skowski who responded to assist with a couple of his personal watercrafts that helped out. And, you know, everybody that was there did a fantastic job. Circumstances willing or given to us, you know, were not in our favor, but everything went as best as we can go, as best as it could have gone. And I do have some other stuff, but like Commissioner Duke said, I'll probably bring it up under old business. So.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Dave, can you hear us? Hey, was that the Italian way? What?
Dave, you can try calling in on your cell phone if you're having a problem with your audio on your computer.
Okay, what I'll do while he's doing that, I have a few things. Chief, we presently have 4 new cars in. Are any of those fully equipped and in service yet?
I hope to have one tomorrow or the latest Friday. I stopped up the vendor yesterday and they were probably, I want to say probably 75 to 80% done. And he told me by the end of the week, I will have that one. And then they're going to start working on the second one that's there.
Hey, Chief, I did ask you last time to check for other vendors because other vendors don't seem to be having a problem getting their parts for vehicles as this vendor is. Can you please do that? I mean, we've now had 3 out of the 4 cars. We've had them for almost 2 months now, and we still don't have any one of them in service.
I spoke with another vendor and they were supposed to swing by here today or tomorrow, or hopefully by the weekend, look at our other cars and then try to come up with something for us. Okay. So that's in the process.
Okay, I'll check in with you to check today or tomorrow concerning getting them cars equipped. My other concern I have is, and I know you probably don't have it, because Joe Manasovich, Detective Manasovich, keep me abreast about it, and also Caroline has also. For some reason, I don't know if Tom Bennett's still having a problem, but I'm still having a problem where I don't receive any emails from Caroline at this time. I had my whole system checked out and it was okay. So it's something on your end that I'm not receiving emails. Fortunately, I was able to get Caroline to email my wife, and then my wife emails me that information. So is there maybe Detective Manasovich has been keeping me up to date on what's going on, and hopefully this will be resolved soon. Yes, Joe, would you like to say something on this?
With the chief's permission, I could talk. Yes, absolutely.
You have my permission.
Okay. Yeah, I looked into it today. Fortunately, we're not on a blacklist, which is a huge issue. The problem you guys are having has to do with our email vendor and their DNS server, and I hope to have it rectified very soon. So they were made aware of it late this afternoon, and he's getting back to me about it. Hopefully we'll get it resolved quick. So sorry it took a delay. It was a little busy today. So.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
The other issue or other comments I have is when are we planning on starting the community policing officers position? Because school's going to start resuming pretty soon, whether it's online or whatever. When are we planning on starting the community policing?
So last time we talked, last meeting, we said we would kind of start them all together and get past the vacation period. So I have that for later, but I was looking at maybe August 28th to start the SROs and the community. And obviously, and then we would have to rebid the shifts and stuff. So we're gonna have to juggle that around. And but that's kind of my thought process right now.
Okay, thank you, Chief. The other issue is that 70-plus page thing that the legislators passed I've been trying to review it all, and I know they're requesting body cams and dash cams. Have you looked into the cost for those two, other than keeping them on record? What it would cost us, because legislators did not put much money aside to help fund for any of these. So it looks like the town taxpayers are going to have to fund for these. So do you have any cost factors for each of the officers to have a body cam in each vehicle that they have the dash cams?
Yeah, I did some rough numbers. I mean, based on data that I have been able to obtain. Body cameras could go anywhere from $600 to $1,000. So I'm figuring on the high end. So, and then storage for that, they figure anywhere between $1,200 to $1,300 a year per officer. So as we said, the storage is probably, you're looking at 35 to 40, if not higher, for the year, just for body cameras. Dash cams, as I told you last month, go between $5,000 and $6,000, and then that don't even include the installation cost. So as I said, this bill is astronomical cost to the cities and towns. Just putting rough numbers together, I'm between already over $250,000 and $300,000. Now, some of this is going to be broken up over a period of 3 years, 4 years, et cetera. But you know, you're going to see these costs in the next budget cycle, no doubt about it. I believe everybody has to have cameras by July of 2022. I believe that's what the law states in that area. So, I mean, we got to start planning and budgeting and start reviewing this more. And that's what I said. This is going to be a work in progress for quite some time. And we've been busy, you know, analyzing this bill and trying to read up and reread and, you know, take a lot of notes. And so, but costs are going to be quite high. So, and then the storage costs on top of that, the dash cams. I'm not really sure if those get stored to the server, or again, do we have to store that to the cloud? So I'm estimating anywhere probably between the two. If we have to store them both to the cloud, probably you're looking at $60,000 to $70,000 a year. And those are rough figures, give or take. And then obviously the cost of the body cameras, as I already stated. I believe every officer probably should have their own body camera. And, you know, so, you know, when you start adding those costs up, they're close to 150 to 200,000 just for some of that stuff. And then obviously with that bill, as I already said, training costs, litigation costs, policy costs, there's a lot to do. So.
Okay, Chief, what I would do is I would start making plans and going to the Board of Finance, which I would attend with you, advising them of what our costs are going to be for both the dash cams and the body cams and the future costs. I don't want to wait till last minute to start implementing these here. I think we should start looking at getting at least the dashboard cams as soon as possible. So if you want to set up something with the Board of Finance, I'll be more than happy to go with you to try appealing to them to help fund for the equipment that the state is telling us that we're going to have, because I don't see no grants available at this time. At least through legislation, there's not any.
In the legislation, they appropriate, I think, $4 million, but there's a lot of police departments that need this equipment, obviously, and that $4 million is not going to go very far. Some cities will reimbursements anywhere from 30 to 50%. We are not on that 50% list. We're not considered a distressed community. So if you're not a distressed community, I think there's like 25 that have been named in the state, and you'll receive 50% if you're distressed. If not, then your reimbursement costs are probably the 30%, if not lower. So I'm figuring on a 30% reimbursement, but it's something, but it's still nowhere where we're going to need. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Deputy Chief Rinaldi, have you set up the classes yet for the officers for that training that we discussed at our last meeting?
Not yet. We're doing the next gen stuff. We're going to get that done first. After the first week of September, I already notified the vendor, and I'll get everybody trained on the bias crimes and human trafficking to start off with. But I've made the vendor aware of it. Everything's all set up. I just got to wait until after the 1st of September to get everybody trained in the classes that you requested.
So we're looking at probably by October, we'll have all the officers go through this class.
The bias class, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Again,
Thank you. Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any other comments? I'm sorry I went on for so long. I'll be right with you, John. It's just that I try to cover what we talked at the last meeting and what should be brought up at this meeting here. That's why I just bring up all this information. Commissioner Duke?
Yeah, just to follow up with the chief on the SROs and the community police officer. I believe the school staff, the teachers are going back on the 25th. I don't know if that's too soon to get you guys started with that, but I'd like to see it mirrored up when they go back so that they have some time to, get to know each other. Sending them on a Friday, which is their last day of the week, isn't really going to get them time to, learn some faces and meet all the players involved. So if it's not too big of an issue, I think maybe at least with the SROs to start them on the 25th when the actual staff goes back. That's all I have.
Chief Jackowski speaking. So I had a conversation today with some school officials, and they just made the final decision today on some of this stuff. So they just had their meeting Monday night, and then today they finalized some things. So in speaking with them, some of the staff does come back. I mean, the staff does come back, but they're going to be isolated in their rooms doing professional development. So the thought process is we try to minimize our officers' exposures to some of those environments, obviously for their own safety. And then I believe the students come back the September 1st. So that's where we said, doing it just a little while ago, that we would try to maybe start the 28th. And then that would give them the 28th and the 31st to get that acclimation, as you said, with staff. And then obviously the students would be there the following day on the 1st. So that's kind of our plans right now. And then obviously, when we pull 3 officers from the shift, there's going to be an impact on obviously scheduling and then potentially overtime. So that's kind of what we reviewed late this afternoon when we received this information. So if the board wants to go earlier, then, you can, I guess, but we're trying to minimize impacts in several areas, if you will. So from a safety and then obviously a cost, but.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. I thought it might be beneficial to get them in there a little earlier. And then you said you were going to rebid for all the positions now that are going to be vacated by the people who got appointed to these new positions?
So pulling 3 people from patrol, yeah, we're going to have to make adjustments to that schedule, which will require a rebid. And then, we're going to have to, go from there. So the schedule will be rebid. So we're going to have to adjust that. So you're basically, right now we have 10, 9, and 9 assigned to each shift. So now that's probably going to be 9, 8, and 8 again. So, there's more than likely going to be an impact overtime on that. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any of the commissioners have any other comments? Okay.
Can you
Moving
hear me
on.
now?
Yes.
Bob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I called in, so I'm able to speak, but there's such a bad echo here. I don't know if I can handle it. All right. You know what? I'm going to pass for now. I'll circle back later. I'm going to hang up and call back in again.
Okay. Okay, Dave, thank you. Okay, moving on, old business, Commander Parratt's grievance. Take possible action. I believe the union would like to make a statement on this. John, would you like to make a comment on this? Take yourself off of mute. John Oskowski, can you hear me? Yep, okay. Oh, you must be sitting with Dave.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Attorney Benther wasn't with us tonight, but we had an e-board meeting and we reviewed the material that Chief Sikowski gave us. I did speak to Commander Parratt as well, and we are going to withdraw the grievance for Commander Parratt.
Okay, so you're withdrawing the grievance?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so the board doesn't have to take any action on it? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is rescind the following motion we made at the last meeting is when John Duke, Dave Bitso, motion to purchase 1 new patrol car, 1 Canine car, and consider the GM vehicle based on price, value of service. Motion passed 3-2. We could rescind this motion. It doesn't matter who made the motion, who seconded that motion. Anybody can make the motion and rescind it under Robert's rules. Since it's already posted on the agenda, all we need is a majority vote to rescind it. If it wasn't on the agenda, then it would need 2/3 vote. We would have to rescind the motion, and the reason for this is that the administration refused to sign a purchase order for us to purchase the Canine car, even though it was less than anything else. He used the reasoning that we're under what they call it, a freeze, a spending freeze. So he said he wasn't going to sign the purchase order to purchase the dog vehicle. And that motion passed 3-2. So could I have a motion to rescind that motion and a second to it? And the reason for this is because the board did agree to purchase the 2 vehicles from Ford. So we wouldn't lose the money, because our choice was we either, if we don't do that, then the town's just going to take the money away from us. And I didn't think it would be fair for us to lose a vehicle because they did not want to sign a purchase order that was less cost to the town than what it is now. So, but that was their choice. So could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tom Bennett, second by Dave Bitso. Discussion. All in favor say aye, or raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Abstention? So carried. 5-0. Thank you very much. Patrol report.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Patrol was pretty busy with a few calls over last month, as the chief alluded to. We had a couple commercial break-ins. The one on Housatonic River, the domestic violence, and then the fatal. We're also still getting hit by cars being stolen and cars broken into various parts of town. This past month in July, Midnight's has been pretty active with DUI arrests. We had a total of 7 DUI arrests this month. I also want to commend everyone who was at the scene at Housatonic River there, the fire department, ambulance people, the mutual aid fire departments, and ambulance. And that's all I have for now, unless you guys have any questions.
Can I just do a radio check?
Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments on the patrol report? Okay, moving on. Detective report. I for one want to say I think the way we received that detective report this month is excellent. very easy format to look at versus just numbers and what cases and so forth. But the way it was written up, I think was very well, saying which each detective was involved with and which cases they're involved with. Who wants to talk about detective report? Deputy Chief Rinaldi?
Yes, I was just going to bring up, I spoke to Inspector DeNiggers. He came up with this format. So the credit goes to him.
Do board members have any comments on detective report? Okay, hearing none. Canine report. Any comments on the canine reports? Yes, Kyle.
I have a question. I had brought it up last month or the month prior. I'm noticing, now we're getting some owed time. So for this one, this month, Officer Skowski has some owed time back from, looks like a track back in September of 2018. Is there any specific reason why we're seeing this now and why that changed? Chief or John?
So that was, if you go back in all the commissioners' canine reports, on the bottom, you would always see the case number, how many hours. We used to get comp time, the option of overtime or comp time. The comp time, we weren't able to take the comp time unless there was enough people on shift, so we weren't creating overtime. When the chief and past deputy chief Frazier came aboard, they put an end to the comp time. So those cases you're seeing on there were for time owed from stuff we had previous. So,
Chief, is there a reason why that was changed? I don't understand why that was changed. I mean, it's been, John, it's been for a while now since, you've been on for several years, right?
5, yep.
So if I could explain, the contract for patrol doesn't cover overtime for comp time. So the comp time was generally given if they gave a class or a demonstration on their day off. There was an agreement that we would give comp time at that time. But for call outs and stuff, we used to just pay the overtime. There's been a couple of times where Officer Oskowski, they were gracious enough to go in the parade and I gave them comp time. So it was used sporadically and only for certain occasions, but it wasn't really used for overtime for call outs. And so that's how comp time was originally allowed. So it was, to kind of compensate them, because a lot of times the canine officer was doing demonstrations on their own, and you could go back and check from other previous officers that did that. And then, so in fairness, I felt, we could give them comp time, hour for hour for doing like demonstrations for Cub Scouts, whatever the occasion was. So that's how the comp time kind of came into play. It wasn't really for the call out aspect of it. So.
John, you received comp time in the past for call outs, correct?
Yes, that's why it was on the bottom of the sheet. So I would go to my supervisor. Would you want comp time, which would save the town money, or would you want to take the overtime? And that's when Commander D'Antona and Inspector DeNiggers would make that call.
Okay. That's how I had remembered it, and that's why when I saw it and the date, when I saw the date this past month and the month before, it kind of, I picked up on that a little bit more, I guess. I don't see the reason for the change. In my opinion, and this, I guess, maybe is for a board vote, but I don't see why it would be any different than a canine officer doing a demonstration versus a canine officer getting off his couch at 8 o'clock at night to go do a call out to either our town or another town. So my personal feeling is I think it should be back to the way it was originally. I think that's the most fair to give the officer the option. that was something that I had for old business. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if that's something you want to address later on in old business.
No, you can address it now, Kyle,
Okay.
if you
So,
like.
yeah, that's my thought. To have it as it was prior, giving the officer the option. They do that. They come out when they come out. And matter of fact, I think they were out. You and your partner were out last week or the week before, in the middle of the night too. Correct?
We were out twice last week, or a week before.
So that's my thought process. I don't know if that needs to go to a board vote or what have you, or if Chief, you can make it back to the way it used to be. But that's what I think should take place as far as the time payback, if you will, for when the canine officer get called.
So, Chief Sikowski, if I may, what I explained to you kind of was the way, but as you said, the inspector and maybe the former commander approved that. Those were kind of unbeknown to me. But as I said, it used to be on occasions, and obviously they're considered patrol. Are we going to allow other patrol to do that? I mean, that was some of the things the town was negotiating with comp time. So, and then if he's using time from 2018, I think we have to check with maybe Attorney Leclerc that I think that comp time has to be used by a certain amount of time. Otherwise, it has to be paid out. So I think that needs to be clarified from a legality point of view. And it's my understanding it has to be within a reasonable amount of time. So.
Chief John Duke, if I could, was a memo of understanding ever sent out, stating that this policy would no longer be followed, or was it just all verbal and guys kind of knew about it but didn't know about it, or how did this all come about when you guys got rid of that policy?
Again, I don't think there was ever a policy in place. I think it was probably a gentleman's agreement between certain individuals, and maybe that's how it transpired. But like I said, my dealing with Officer Oskowski was with parades, events, demonstrations, etc. And as far as being compensated, because again, he's part of patrol. So the next person that works patrol might say, I want comp time, and that's not in the contract, and we don't do that right now. So
that's a
those
no?
are some of my concerns. And what's that?
That's a no then? There was never a memo sent out that stated?
I don't have anything in writing. I've never seen anything in writing. So again, and I think that was maybe a verbal agreement or gentleman's agreement between certain individuals. And I'm not sure if the former chief or that was ever approved.
Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc. Perhaps we should put this over until next month, and we'll take a look at this issue to see if there are any memorandums. We'll take a look at the collective bargaining agreement so we can get this resolved properly for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Tom Bennett. I think I'd ask Attorney Leclerc, for non-salaried employees under labor law, is comp time legal? I did not think non-salaried employees were allowed to have comp time. They're supposed to be paid overtime for anything over 40 hours.
I have to defer to one of my partners in the Labor and Employment Department. That's why I'm going to have him take a look at it. Attorney Holcomb will take a look at that too.
Okay.
Get this resolved properly,
I do remember something to that effect for non-salaried employees. So I think before we make any decision, we should find that out. If there's going to be an official rendering on what we're going to do for comp time.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett. So we'll
John
this.
has something, Mr. Chairman.
We'll hold it. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
John Oskowski has something.
Oh, John.
Yeah, yes. So Deputy Chief Frazier had to put a spreadsheet together for him, which would spell out when we were using comp time. So there was a spreadsheet made up. I can go back and find that for you. But that's how we kept track of all the comp time. So there was something in place. just to keep track of everything. And to do with the salary employees, I mean, our detectives get comp time, and they're not salary. So
Doesn't mean it's right, John.
no, I'm just saying. Yep.
Okay,
Right.
I'm just saying that just because that's the way we've always done it.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's legal. So
right. I'm just.
I just, hey, what happens between, unofficial parties sometimes is different than if we're going to have a vote on something, unfortunately.
Yep. Okay.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll wait to the next meeting, and Attorney Leclerc will come back with a answer for us whether or not we could continue doing that or not.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I do want to go back. Deputy Chief Rinaldi, could you just answer this one question for me? And I'm sorry, I'm going back to the patrol report on a certain day, a certain time in July. Officers were called to, what was it, Barone's? Oh, Bowling's on 7/25. A complaint at Bowling's. Investigated found that James so-and-so appeared intoxicated, operating. This is at 5 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't Bowling's supposed to close at a certain time?
Yes, they were closed. I know I read the report. It had to do with an employee who was in fear for her life and went back there. And the boyfriend followed her to the establishment, but it was not open at that time.
Okay, I was just wondering because it said it happened at Bowen, so that's why I brought that up. Thank you very much.
It was a domestic issue, and she felt safe going back there.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Chief. Okay, any other comments on the K9 report?
Chief Sakowski, I have one issue.
Yes.
So I had a request from one of the Canine officers to take his dog out of state. Apparently, the previous month, he did take the dog out of state. The dog got injured, and that was unbeknown to us until it was reported to us. And at that time, when I found out, I said, I don't think he should be taking the dog out of state. He came to me, explained the circumstances, and now he's requesting to take the dog out of state again, I guess, as he goes on vacation. So I don't think it should be allowed, but I don't know what the board thinks if they want to allow that.
Chief, my question to you is he taking it out of state for police business?
Well, yeah, let me clarify. No, it was personal business. It's not police department related or sanctioned, if you will, for training or anything. So when I found out about the first time, I said absolutely no more, that he should not be doing that. And then he came to me and requested it. I guess there was concern about kennel costs and stuff, but I said, we have never done that unless it was obviously police department related business. So I told him I would get an answer. I believe he's going within the next couple of days, and I knew tonight's meeting, so I bring that to the board to see what your thoughts and comments are on that.
Well, I'm just, yes, Commissioner Duke.
I just have a question for the chief, or maybe for Officer Skowski, since he's the canine handler or senior canine handler. When we talk about boarding a police dog, are we talking about like the same place I would bring my personal pet, or do you guys send it to somebody who's more qualified to handle such an animal? Or what when we say board it, what are we talking about boarding?
So Chief Sakowski, I'll go first, and then if John wants to clear. So in the past, some of the canine officers would make their own arrangements with themselves. So if we had two canine officers, one of the other canine officers would kind of say, hey, I'll take care of your dog, and they would take care of it. So it's still a police officer that's involved in the program taking care of it. Otherwise, they have made arrangements with, I believe, where the dog was purchased. I believe he runs a kennel business and, obviously deals with these canines all the time. So those were kind of the arrangements that were made in the past. One officer, obviously, he had a family member that was able to care for the dog, because he was a retired canine handler for a very lengthy amount of time. So there's been variations into how that was handled, but to my understanding, it will go to the caretaker of where we purchased the canine. So that's my understanding, but.
Okay.
Officer Oskowski wants to go.
Chief, I do have a question. Excuse me, Chief, I do have a question. Does he take the canine car with him?
To my knowledge, no. I think it was his personal vehicle, but he felt when this happened about a month ago, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and he said he wasn't aware that he shouldn't take it. But he requested to do it again, and so that's why I bring it to you to see how the board feels about that.
Yes, John Oskowski.
Okay, so the chief was correct on his explanation. So we have the other officers going to a personal house. It's actually another employee of ours. This personal car that he'd be taking, by allowing him to do that, he would save the kennel cost, which was about $275. We don't budget for boarding. In our budget right now, we budget for food, and we just make that every year. So it's not like he's going to a party, or the dog will be housed at a single house with another officer there. They're a part of our family, so that's all I got.
I believe there would be other members of the other family there. So,
correct.
I mean, you just got to look at it from liability concerns, and that's what I always try to look at through. So,
Kyle?
John Ostrowski said it, those dogs are part of their family. They get them from, young, and they're with them for the remainder of their life. And Chief, I understand what you mean about liability, but to me, it's no different than somebody walking into somebody else's home. My personal feeling is we can take this and make it as a case-by-case basis, right? In this circumstance, I personally don't see a problem with it. It saves the cost of the kennel fees. The handler is with the dog. Obviously, the dog is with the family on a regular basis. Obviously, they're not taking their work vehicle out of state. This circumstance, I don't have a personal problem with. Maybe moving on in the future, it's a case-by-case, ruling. If arrangements can't be made, like John said, if one of the other handlers can't house a dog for the duration, if they're flying, if they're, going to a resort or something like that. But for this circumstance, I personally don't have a problem with it.
Any other board members want to make any comments on this?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You could?
Commissioner Duke.
Yes, I to what Kyle was saying, if the dog is going to be in a controlled environment, a private home, it's different than being at a resort or somewhere where you're going to be around a large number of strangers. But if we, and this is just my opinion, if we as the town don't reimburse the canine handlers for the cost of what it's going to take to board the dog while they're away, it's almost like penalizing them in one aspect for being a canine handler, because now you're handcuffed to not being able to go away on a vacation. And like Kyle said, it's a case-by-case basis. I think, he's not going to a crowded area or a resort. It's going to be a private residence, no different than if he was home with the dog. If he was home with the dog and the dog bit somebody, we'd just be just as liable as if, the dog was out of state at a private residence. So I mean, I don't see a big deal with it, but I think it's something we should consider in the future, is maybe having some kind of accommodation for these guys in the event that we do need to board a dog. because it's just, I can't see making them pay to put the dog in a kennel, you know, when that's, you know, that's a police officer in its own right. And it's just, it shouldn't penalize the canine handler for having them. But that's just my opinion.
I see Attorney LeClaire's head shaking, just for the record, up and down.
Yes. Anyone else have any comments concerning that issue?
Chief Sapkowski, just to clarify, the department has paid in the past for housing the canines in the absence. There might have been times where they did it themselves, but I don't think the department knew about that. But we have reimbursed them and paid that those kennel costs in the past. And they get a budget, and we try to stay within that budget and work within that to handle some of those things. So.
Any commissioners have any other comments? My only comment is, I know myself, many of us have dogs ourselves, and I know my dog thinks he's a canine, but he isn't. So I do want to say, though, is that he is just as much part of this family as the rest of us are. And when we go on vacation or something, we bring him with us. All the way to Florida, even when we go to Florida. So I'm just saying that I think the dog would be more at home with his handler, and I have no problem with the handler as long as he has the dog under control, because like I believe it was Commissioner Duke said, or Commissioner Kelly said, if the dog bites somebody at his house, is just as liable as if he bites him somewhere else. So I sort of support that, and I don't believe that the dog handlers, they have vacation time coming in. I don't think they should have to work around their vacation time and the dog at the same time. So I have no problem as one commissioner allowing the dog to go out of state as long as it's under control at all times. Any board members have any other comments? Okay,
I'll just say I'm not opposed to it. I tried putting my dog in a kennel, and the dog was shaking like a leaf after 2 hours, and we just couldn't bring ourselves to leave it there, especially not even for an overnight, never mind a whole week. So I personally wouldn't do it.
Okay, so well, we don't have a written policy on this, so the board would have to place this on the table if they want to allow the dog handlers to allow them to take the dog out of state. We would have to place that on the table because it's not on the agenda at this time. So could I have a motion to place this on the table? Motion by Dave.
Since there's no policy either way, do we need to do that?
Well, Attorney LeClaire?
Well, do you want a policy, or I think the chief was just asking your advice. You know, he was, giving the options, the two options, and I think am I correct, Chief, that that's what you were looking for, the advice of the commission regarding?
Just clarification, yes. We never faced this situation before, and it was done, and I said no, I don't think it should happen, obviously for various reasons, but that's why I brought it to the board tonight to see what their opinions are and get clarification. So.
Okay, thank you. Just ask the board members, does any board member have any objections with the dog handler taking the dog out of state?
I do not.
No, I hear no objection. So our policy would be to allow the dog handler to take the dog out of state if he has to take care of the dog. So that's what our policy would be. We do not need a motion for that. Yes, Dave.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I'd use that word policy, because I think it should be a case-by-case basis. Obviously, we would probably have we probably would have different concerns if a dog handler was going to put a dog on a plane and go to Florida. So,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't state it as a policy. It's just we're going to allow it this time.
Yeah, I understand. No, I usually drive when I take my dog to Florida, so. But anyways, the policy would be that case by case basis, as long as it's not out of hand. I mean, like going on a plane and things like that. If he's going to take his own personal car on a vacation day or vacation, so that would be each incident would be judged by you, Chief. Okay.
Chief Sikowski, yes. So I'll speak with the Canine officers, and basically they would have to advise me or the department.
Oh, yes.
If and when they're looking for that, and just so we're aware of it and get the permission, if you will, to so we're all on the same page, and so that's what we'll do.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay, moving on to the car report. Any questions on the car report? Yes, John Oskowski.
I just have two updates on the Canine. So the bite suit that was ordered did come in. We used it the other day in training. Really nice suit. So that's in service, and we have received it. And the other thing is we got a donation for Canine Zors vest that we spoke about a couple months ago, where the board voted to give $200 donation. LeClaire Heating and Cooling is going to donate the other $1,000 so we can get that vest. So that'll be ordered in the next week or so. So we need to get that check that was approved a couple months ago.
Okay.
And it's just it's been a busy month for us. With call outs and been doing a lot out there. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to jump the gun on that one.
That's all right.
Canine report. I mean, we did that. Car report. No comments on the car report. I think we discussed the new cars earlier in the meeting. Next on the agenda is under new business. First thing is a transfer. The chief is giving us a transfer request. Chief, is this transfer from last year's budget or this year's budget?
This is close out the 19-20 year budget, so last year's budget. I think I advised on some of these, the supers, the overtime. I mean, those are kind of normal, and usually we do some transfers in the January, February timeframe. We were good until about May, the end of May, beginning of June on those line items, especially at the end of June, where there was an increase of obviously people trying to use their time. So that's where the overtime went over, and the supers, and obviously repairs and maintenance ran over by $1,100 and some change due to some work we had on some of the vehicles. So this is all the last year's budget, 19-20. This is just basically to clean the accounts up as requested by the Board of Finance and the Finance Director. So that's what these transfers would do, and they would zero out those accounts. The Finance Director took it from the crossing guards, obviously, with the shutdown of school due to COVID. There was money left over there, so that's where he suggested the money come from, and I just said, whatever you think, and that's what he did. So,
Chief, my question to you is the bottom line wouldn't change either way, right?
What do you mean bottom line?
The bottom line of the budget. In other words, it still won't show overspending our budget, whether we transfer this money or not.
Nowhere close. Money has been returned to the town. So no, this would not affect any of that, where our budget is still in very good shape with these transfers. So
well, I just, the reason why I question this, Chief, is only because we're in a spending freeze, and it seems like this transfer seems okay, but the police car transfers weren't okay. So could you explain that to me? Because they're exactly the same. We transferred within our own budget.
You're okay with me. I think your question would have to go to probably the first selectman on that one. But these are normal operating expenses where, you know, we kind of didn't have any real choice. So their budget freeze entails basically everyday expenses that we have to pay out, obviously overtime and supers for people to work. And the supers obviously stays on that overtime, and then repairs and maintenance. You know, those are vehicles that we needed, and you know, we got the repairs done, and they always been kind of good to us in that respect. Where if it's needed, you could justify it. I think we could everything here, and so I don't see the issue here with this. So
the only issue I see with it doesn't change the bottom line. It shows that we didn't overspend our budget.
no,
Just overspent certain line items.
right. This transfer will clean those accounts up, which I've been told is normal practice every year that if this should occur. So.
Well, this is the end of August, and I think it's kind of late for this. Well, that's just my opinion. Dave?
Yes. I didn't get a copy of that transfer for some reason in my packet, but if I recall, I could be wrong, last month or maybe 2 months ago, there was talk about transferring the money out of the crossing guard account. And I thought, Chief, at that time, you were against doing it?
No, I
No.
never said I said we probably have to do transfers, you know, in the near future. And I think I explained what the finance director told me. He said, wait till the end, and we would do this in July or August. And I got a hold of him last week, and he said we could even do it till September if we had to. But I said I prefer to get it done and out of the way for this meeting, and that's what he has done with this paperwork. So.
And where's this money going to? What account? Crossing guard account to where?
From the 114 account crossing guards to the 112 account supernumeraries, overtime 130, and then the repairs and maintenance. Those are the three line items we're looking to clean up with this transfer.
My only other comment on this is that we transferred tens of thousands of dollars in overtime account earlier this year, and now you're asking us to transfer more money.
In the 1920 budget, there was never a request for
Yeah.
overtime. There never was a request for overtime.
Yeah, last year's budget. We transferred a lot of money into overtime earlier this year.
No, not this year.
Well, I'll check into it, okay, Chief? I know we did. You requested a transfer for overtime earlier this year.
Not this year, sir.
Not for this year's budget. I'm talking about last year's budget.
That was 18-19. We did a transfer in like February of 19 that time frame.
1920 time frame.
No, not 1920 budget.
Okay, I'll check into that, but I think I can recall that. Anyways, the board members have any comments on the transfer or want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to transfer the money.
Tom Bennett makes motion, transfer the money. Do I have a second? Kyle? Made the second. Any further discussion on the transfers? All in favor, just raise your hand. 1, 2. Dave, is your hand up? John, your hand up? I can't hear you, John.
No.
No? Okay, I'm voting no for the transfer, so transfers fail 3-2. Next on the agenda, under new business, I believe somebody said earlier they want to bring something up under new business. I think, yes, Kyle. Take yourself off of mute.
That doesn't happen often. No, there was I believe it was actually under old business that I had a couple of questions. The new business stuff was actually what we were talking about as far as the canine compensation. So I'll skip over that so we can move on.
Oh, okay. Board members have any other comments on new business? Okay, moving on. Correspondence. We received a correspondence from Eugene A. Skronsky, thanking our great, efficient secretary, Caroline, for an outstanding job she does every day. I agree with them 100%. She does an outstanding job for us as a board and also for the police department. And I want to thank you and make sure that a copy of this goes in Caroline's file. Okay, Chief?
Yes, absolutely. I think I have that set aside already.
And also we have a letter from the chief concerning Officer Marino and complimenting him and giving him appreciation. Make sure one of these go in his file.
Yes.
And then their correspondence is, I believe, the 71 or 72 page state statutes. I believe you all received in your packet. If not, there's one over the police station for you, and you can review the legislation that was passed on that. That's all the correspondence I have. Other business. Any board members have any other business? Yes.
I have a couple things, if I may. We're coming up on September, and I know earlier in the year we had our committee that met to put together the evaluations for patrol and for management.
Mr. Chairman, the speaker has to identify himself because we're on recording on Zoom.
My apologies, Commissioner Bitso. So we discussed, the committee quickly, within a couple months, came up with the evaluations, put them in, and it was approved by the board to move forward. I don't remember the timetable when I was going through some of the packets today, tonight trying to figure it out, but I thought we were talking about an August-September timeframe to try and get these evaluations done. So I'm hoping that we're working on those. I would think that, I know there's been a lot going on and with the virus. There's meetings once a week for a couple hours, and last month was a busy month, but I'd like to think that we're moving forward with that and maybe get an update at the next meeting. I'm not looking for anybody to say anything tonight, but if the sergeants maybe do 1 or 2 a month, or matter of fact, 1 a week, 3 or 4 a month, they'll be able to get through the 8 or 10 people that report to them. And maybe we could have this all buttoned up by the end of September, early October. I just wanted to bring that up. We haven't talked about it since we put the program in place. So maybe next month the deputy chief and the chief can give us an update on that. The other thing is we also put in place some goals, or I should say that the chief put together some goals and a timeline to achieve those goals. And there was 7 of them, and some were to be ongoing, some were to be completed by May, June, April through September. So I'm not going to ask for an update tonight because I probably should have done that in advance, but Chief, maybe if you could take a look at your timeline goals and maybe give us an update at the next meeting as to where we stand with some of these things. Some of them are probably maybe have already been completed, but I think an update would be in order, which is just something that we put in place for the contract. And then the last thing to talk about is what we talked about last month was the weekly report / update. Carolyn sent the revised one out, I believe, this morning to all the board members and the chief. Has anybody had a chance to review it? And does anybody have any comments? This is something that Commissioner Bennett and I put together at the request of the commissioner. Or I'm sorry, at the request of the chair. Basically, what it is it's a weekly report, and we're asking for a date, week-ending date on a Friday. The first section would be key items worked on this week, highlights. the next question, the next section would be new IAs. If any new IAs have been punched, any discipline took place. Following that, any media inquiries. And then following that, were there any injuries that week? And following that would be any vehicle issues, major accidents, minor fender benders. So we're not waiting until the monthly meeting to find out some of this stuff. And then at the bottom, other things that you may want to add to it. So I'm just putting that out for feedback from everybody. Any comments? Any changes?
All set, Dave?
No feedback, no comments?
Yeah, the only comment I would like, I think this is good information to have. The only thing I would like to see on it also is the days and hours that have been worked. In other words, did they work 5 days that week? Did they work 4 days that week? So that we could keep track of the vacation time, personal days, and so forth that they're taking off also. So that's the only thing that I would add to it.
Mr. Chair, this is for the chief to fill out every week and send to the board members every Friday. So you want on there what days he worked or or if he took time off, you want that listed on there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Shake your head. Okay. Mr. Chair, is that what you're asking for? That if the chief takes a day off, takes a vacation day, we'd like to see that on there?
Yeah, I would like to see it personally on there because we should keep track of hours and days of work, because sometimes, I mean, they get vacation time also. And if for some reason we don't get information that we're looking for, it could be because they were on vacation or something. So this would just clarify it up that he only worked 3 days that week or 4 days that week. I would like to see that. That's just my opinion.
Okay. I can add that in there to, the time off, vacation / time off, and the chief can just put down if he took Thursday and Friday off. And obviously there'd be less to report if he took time off. So that could be added. Anybody else?
The work is always there. Not less to report, but
yeah.
Understand 24/7.
What's that?
I said you're always available 24/7, Chief, and we always appreciate it. Even when you take a day off, you always inform us if something happens that day. You always notify us. I mean, this is just to keep track of everything that's going on over the police station. That's all.
All right, so I'll add that in there. Send it to Caroline tomorrow. It should resend this out. And the chief, you think you can start sending this to the board every Friday, starting next Friday?
Sure, I don't have a problem with it. And just be aware if I'm off Fridays, because that's what I've been trying to tie in. For probably tomorrow and Friday, I was looking to take off also because some things came up. So if it's not Friday, then I would try to get it done that following Monday or available day back to work. So
well, if you're going to take Thursday and Friday off, and any chance of getting it out to us Wednesday, closing the business on Wednesday, that'll tell us, what you did those 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would. That's what I'm saying. There's got flexibility in there, but I would get it done either by that Friday or the following Monday. But it would still encompass that same week. So
if you're taking a Friday off, send it off to us Thursday night. If you take Thursday and Friday off, send it to us Wednesday night.
Well, as the chair said, things still happen and still respond, even though I'm off 24/7. So
we understand that.
I would try to encompass the whole picture. So I would rather probably see my next day back to work. I think that would be what I would like to see. But if you want something different, then.
Well, I mean, I would think that you'd want to do this each day as the day goes on, so it's all fresh in your mind, rather than come back on a Monday and try to remember everything that you did that week. So, we would like to see it the last work day of the week sent off to us. given any unforeseen circumstances of any kind of an emergency, we had to leave early.
Is that it, Dave?
Yep, that's it.
Caroline, can you please make sure that you put on the agenda a couple things that Commissioner Bitso stated, one about the evaluations, make sure there's something on the agenda so that we're all aware of the updates and so forth. So anytime a commissioner asks for something in the future, just make sure that item is on the agenda. Thank you, Caroline.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, Chief.
Chief Sarkowski speaking. So as I told the board, I was looking at the August, September timeframe. So I began that process about 2 weeks ago. I met with two committee members, Rondad, Deputy Chief and Commander. I asked them for the paperwork because I have no paperwork because I was not part of that committee. I know the board approved stuff a while back, probably going back to April. I asked for the paperwork, and they both stated that they did not have any of that paperwork, that I guess Commissioner Bitso has that paperwork. So they were supposed to reach out to you, and I don't know if they did or not, but I wanted to start that process about 2 weeks ago, as I said I would. So that's the evaluations. The timeline on the goals, obviously we're down administrator. We've been handling everything that has been coming in, COVID, the civil unrest stuff we've been watching, the storms, this bill. But I believe a while back, it was mentioned at one of the meetings that some of the timeline on these goals would be extended, just like everything else with COVID, because everything that's been going on. So that's kind of where we're at with those goals and the timeline on that. So.
Okay, so if I may, Commissioner Bitso, the timelines were extended prior to handing that out. We added an extra month or two prior to handing it out because of the COVID virus. So those timelines are up to date. As far as the evaluations, they were passed out to every board member and the chief and deputy chiefs at a meeting back, I believe, I'm not sure the date. And also an electronic copy was given to Caroline for both evaluation forms. So hard copies were passed out to all board members and police administration, and we can get more copies. Caroline, I'm sure, has the electronic copies. If not, I could forward those to her again.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments from board members? That was under other business. Okay, commissioners' comments? Okay, Dave.
That's all I have for now.
You have any comments?
That's all I have for now.
Okay. Commissioner Duke.
Just real quick, I mentioned it, I believe, at the last meeting, and I just wanted to maybe follow up on it and expand a little bit, but I probably could have brought this up under old business. I know we have a new vendor now that's taking care of the vehicle repairs, and I know in the past we spoke and you said you've been happy with Gabby's, but is this something else we could look into, as maybe exploring other body shop vendors instead of just going to one exclusively? I think we should probably spread it around a little bit. I know we're looking to do, you're speaking with the new vendor for the lights and sirens. I think that's great. We're spending a lot of money paying these people to do work, and we should be getting the most for our money. So I think it would be prudent to maybe shop it around and find some new vendors, or make sure what we're getting is the best that's available. But just wanted to, maybe expand on, what we get for service. That's all.
Chief Sarkowski, I think we're getting the best we can for our service. The price is always competitive in the past. And like I said, we found a vendor that we feel comfortable with, that we feel is fair and gets the job done. And what's happened in the past with some of these vendors is, as they would lowball the bid, and then when the car goes in for repair work, then all of a sudden it's you know, the price increases dramatically because, you know, if you're going based on what they write, and those are some of the problems we had in the past. So, again, we found the vendor that we feel meets all that criteria you described, and you know, so that's kind of where we're at with that. But.
Yeah, I would still like to see it maybe possibly shopped around a little bit, just to make sure that, you know, all things are equal across the board, and, you know, we're sure that we're still competitive at this point with other places. You know, if we haven't gone to them in a while, it's hard to know what they're charging. So I'm not saying we have to give anybody else business, but just maybe solicit some bids.
I agree. It doesn't hurt to get bids from other vendors just to see what the prices are. We have a number of body shops in Seymour and around Seymour. So you know, to get prices from others would help to see if we're getting the best price. And not that the present vendor doesn't give us good work and good prices. There might be other vendors out there looking for the work too. Any other board members? Dave, Bitso, you have any comments?
No, not really. Nothing at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Bennett?
I would just, did we get the chairs for the dispatch center yet?
I was advised by the vendor that those are in, they're putting them together, and they were supposed to be delivered hopefully by the end of this week. That was my conversation yesterday. So,
how about the tourniquets? Were they, do we get those yet?
Yep, those are in, and we started dispensing them to the officers. So yes, business cards are in. So as I said, a lot of stuff is coming in, trickling in. So
excellent, thank you. I have nothing else.
Commissioner Kelly?
I don't have anything. Commissioner Bennett actually had my question, so I'm all set.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, I don't have any questions. Union business. John, do you have any union business?
Just one. Just wanted to update you with the contract. We have been going back and forth, like the chief said. We were supposed to get a copy today from Warren. We did not receive it yet. I talked to Attorney Bento at about 4 o'clock, and he has not received it yet. So we're still going back and forth. We're trying to get it wrapped up, and we'll bring it to you guys as soon as we do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, John. Okay, number 13, executive session. Personnel. This will include the chief of police and the board members in executive session. And it's going to discuss basically some of the things that Commissioner Bennett brought up at our last meeting, which should have we should really discuss more in detail in executive session. That's why this was put on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, that is because I assume of safety and security and investigatory techniques, correct?
Yes.
For the record?
Yes.
Are you having me come into executive session as well, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you could. Yes.
So you'll just
All
need
the
us to
board
know.
members. Yeah. all the board members and Attorney Leclerc. So could I have a motion go in executive session this time?
And the chief, Mr. Chairman.
And the chief, I'm sorry. Motion by Commissioner Duke, second by Dave Bitso. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? So carried at 8 o'clock. We're going to executive session. Thank you.